Now pulling in this third one, and you're saying this plus this plus this is going back to the garden trying to find the original. Okay, now does anybody else have anything to say combining these two together?
You can't get from point A to point B until you find the original.
Okay, so she's reiterating a similar thing, which almost looks like it's summarized by this graphic, saying there was an original, it spun off to some sort of cosmetic surgery, maybe on account of getting a snake bite, because snake bite injects poison, and then there's this quest to get back to the original, which is the omega, somehow, after all, the journey and the journey has the motive of trying to get back to the original, though I don't see that it says that, but that's the feeling that you seem to get. Is that kind of accurate? Okay, does anybody else have anything to throw into that? Okay, here. How about if you combine these two? Perseverance, and remember this was like the wave and the rhythm, the walk. What concept do you get when you combine this with this?
You have to have perseverance to get back to the garden.
You have to have perseverance to get back to the garden. Okay, so you're...
The Alpha and the Omega.
And it's a narrow way.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so what has happened here is that people seems to have collectively zeroed in to just the Alpha and Omega concept. What about all these other things? Eyeball, hurricane, atom, orbit, galaxy. How does that fit in with perseverance? Redemption. How does that redemption?
If you persevere, maybe you will get back to the original, to the beginning, or.
And what does redemption mean?
You're redeemed. You're whole, yeah.
So, in other words,
You're brought back to the way you were supposed to be.
it's kind of like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz. She finds herself in a lost world, just wanting to get home. She says, gee, I can't seem to find my way back. And by the end of the movie, the guy says, hey, you're wearing the ruby slippers. All you had to do is take your heels and say, I want to go home, which she does, and whoosh, she's redeemed back to Kansas. That's a picture of the redemption you're talking about. Suddenly lifted up out of the circumstance and brought over and plopped down back in the garden. That's kind of what you're describing?
Parenting.
Parenting. How is perseverance, seed, fruit, how is that parenting?
If you have kids, you understand.
If I had kids, I would know. Gee, thanks. Yeah.
To me, this goes a little deeper, but again, it's the birth canal. Through rebirth and perseverance, through redemption, with perseverance, you get back to the original.
Okay.
Through a rebirth.
Okay, everybody kind of on the page with that? Okay, now what I want you to do is take the concept of lost, which is these two put together, and the concept of this redemption, birth canal, getting back, with perseverance, which is these two, and what do you get when you put all three together?
Restoration.
Restoration of what?
Trying to get back into the garden.
Restoration back to the garden. Okay, so
Restoration to relationship.
Coming home.
Or if you're the pure seed, as you persevere, you don't have to come home. You never left.
okay, this being the pure seed, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're saying the pure seed has not been modified, so it's basically
It has been.
it's still one, not two, basically.
Because we don't listen and the hurricane.
If you were to have listened, then the hurricane wouldn't have happened. Okay, does anybody get anything else out of putting together these three pictures? Yeah.
I was thinking like the hurricane's like a storm, like maybe a spiritual warfare type situation, and then you got to persevere or go to or trust in God, which the two would come into play because it takes two if you're listening to him, that way you would go back to the Garden of Eden, theoretically the place where he needs you to be. He'll take you out of that hurricane or out of that storm. That's where I was.
Does everybody understand what he said? Does anybody not understand what he said? What's that? So, could you say it again, shorter words, the same thing?
Well, like in a stormy situation, okay, Yah will bring you out of that as long as you listen to Him.
Okay, so you're basically putting all this together and saying,
yeah, and
if we listen to Yahuwah's truth,
right,
unmodified,
yeah,
He'll rescue us from the hurricane
right,
and take us back to where we're supposed to be.
Right.
So the contingent factor is,
right,
we should have listened, and we got into the hurricane, but if we start listening, He'll bring us back.
right.
Okay, so yeah.
Prodigal son.
Excuse me?
Prodigal son.
This is a prodigal son
Prodigal
story?
son.
And how's that?
Because he went into chaos or non-order. When he got into that, the hurricane or feeding the pigs, he realized, hey, I need to listen. He turned around through perseverance and went back to his father.
Does everybody see that? The prodigal son didn't want to listen to his father anymore, so he gets lost, whooped up in the hurricane, decides to come back home, and he finds himself unlost back where he belongs, as it were, to the garden. Does anybody else disagree with that? Okay, what I would suggest is what you just described is a reduction of the story of the entire Bible, and especially the message to Ephraim that we just talked about in Jeremiah 31. This is a microcosm reduced down to these three little graphics of that story. Now I'm going to show you something about this that you might not have known. If I take this word, or this letter, some people draw that letter like this, and some people draw that letter like this. It's all the same letter. It's all the same letter, and it happens to be called the letter Shin, which means teeth, and it's related to fire because both teeth and fire consume. So the pictographic essence of that picture is consuming fire, and that's known as the monogram, the single letter, which represents El Shaddai, the Almighty, the consuming fire, and as the female breast, the provider of all benefits, because the word Shad, as in El Shaddai, the word Shad literally means breast. So he is not only the one who is the almighty, powerful destroyer, he's the one who provides all the benefits to sustain us and nourish us, such as during the journey through the wilderness. There's where it was El Shaddai, the destroyer, with doing the 10 plagues of Egypt, and then El Shaddai, the sustainer and provider to his people Israel. So the double dynamic, number 2, is evident just in that letter shape. The next letter was the letter Mem, which literally, Mayim, is the word water, and it speaks of a womb. You can see that this is like the crashing top of a wave, and this is the undercut. If you're surfing, you'd be standing right here shooting that, shooting the curl.
You're talking about, is this paleo or is this modern?
This is pictographic.
Pictographic, okay.
I'm telling you the pictographic letter shapes, and I'm drawing them as paleo letters.
Okay, That's
Okay.
what I was wondering. I was like, oh.
Now the other interesting thing, the combination of these two letters that you guys came up with, reducing it down to the word lost. The word spelled Shin Mem literally is translated as there and here, which is a specific location. Which means lost means you lost that location. You're not there. You're dislocated from where? The Garden of Eden? But the other interesting thing, this very same word is pronounced Shem, which is also name, fame, renown, and reputation. And when Yahweh says, "This is my name," he says the word Shem. In Hebrew, when they say Hashem, it literally means the name, but it also means the location, or it means right here or right there. So to say, where is, now this is another level of reading. If somebody says, where is the here of the name? It's the place of the original relationship. That's the here, that's the place he wanted, designed, intended, we got lost from, and as Ephraim coming back to the Father's house, that's the there that we, the lost ones, are looking for to get back. It's all right there in that story of those two letters together. Now, the other interesting thing is if you add the letter, this is the letter Ayin. And the reason I called out Yirmiyahu is because he had a particular question about that letter. Now, I believe that the word Mem Ayin means a small bit. But let me double check. So look in the dictionary here for Mem Ayin. Yeah, it's a small bit, like a grain, Mem Ayin Hay, a small coin, a small weight. It's like a detail. There's no word Mem Ayin, so Mem Ayin Hay is the closest you can get to it. It's kind of like the dot of an I, not one iota, that's Greek. Just one little dot, like a penny would be a Mem Ayin Hay. But also, if you get into Mem Ayin Vav Hay, the word is distortion or iniquity. Kind of like if you have an airplane and you're flying and all of a sudden you're 1 degree off. Well, that's just 1 degree. You're going to end up, depending on how far you go, in a completely different destination. The magnetic North Pole has been slipping over the past couple of years, they say, and they have to continually recalibrate their compasses because, you know, you're headed for Tallahassee and you'll end up in Atlanta and it's like, what are you doing over here? It throws you off, even to a little bit. So the point is, if you say, how do you get lost? An incremental miscalculation of some type of distortion of the truth is actually called iniquity. Well, it's just a little sin. It's a distortion of missing the bullseye. For us to think, well, we're forgiven, it's under the blood, it's covered, it's okay. Don't burden yourself with the law, we're under grace. You're going to miss the restoration of the relationship back to the place we were supposed to be because we will be off target, off track. How do you make the correction? What you guys were saying a minute ago is listen. Pay attention to every detail of what he said. Well, what kind of details of what he said? Well, here's an interesting thing just about design. When he speaks, he's speaking words. What are the details which compose words? What are the details? What are the small little incremental parts? What are the Mem Ayins, the little bitty parts that compose the bigger stuff that's like words? So if you have over here, like atoms are formed by electrons swarming it out of nucleus, and that makes the model of a element. You join elements, you get compounds, just like you have the picture of the spiral galaxy, right? So what is the small little thing like the electron, excuse me?
The prefix and suffix of
What are prefixes and suffixes? If you join things together, they become like prefixes and suffixes, but what are they?
They're the beginning and the end of the word.
Which are what? Letters! Hey! You know, letters are basically the atoms of words. And they function together as objects or tools. Prefix, subject, suffix, verb roots. The Semitic language group across the world, look up in a dictionary, encyclopedia, it's a 3-letter verb root, which has prefixes and suffixes, and it has vowels, A, E, I, O, U in English, dropped in between, and it has tenses like past, present, and future. That's the basic structure of the Semitic language group, and not all languages on earth are Semitic. Okay, now, we just messed around with this one 3-letter word. And out of this 3-letter word, would anybody like to put it all together and come up with a message spelled by all these concepts that we just stacked up? Would anybody want to venture a shot at that? Yeah? Your hand's raised. I see. What is it?
I didn't raise my hand.
I haven't called on you anyway. Close enough. What do you got?
No. I'm a percolator. I gotta percolate a little bit.
Okay. One reason for doing this is exactly what she just said. Percolate with this. This isn't about. Well, hurry up and give me the answer, would you? We got to. Go ahead and think about it. The interesting thing that I've found about doing this. This is one word, and you might kick this around for the next 3 months or 3 years. It's okay. There's not necessarily a right answer, but I'm going to tell you what this word is translated as, and some of you might already know what it is, but the thing about this one word, if I give you the translation, you will never again be allowed to percolate in innocence. Because you'll have this bear hanging over you going, yes, yeah, yeah, and you'll go, and you won't be free. The benefit of being an illiterate when it comes to this Hebrew is that your mind can drift without these curbs imposed by doctrine. You better believe this or you won't be saved. What did he say? Because these is exactly what Yahuwah said. And if you knew how important this word was, when Yeshua was asked, what is the most important thing out of the entire Scripture, over thousands of years of mankind trying to get back into relationship with the Creator. This is what he said.
Love.
Nope. Love is what drives you to this. Love is what might come out of this, but that's not what he said. So I'm trying to tell you, there's something about... Can somebody put this into words?
The Shin Mem Ayin, that's Shema, when you hear, obey, and do.
This is the word Shema?
The Mem Ayin, the little details of the, to get back to the Shem, the location, locale of the garden. The Shin Ayin is, salvation or redemption of the Ayin Mem is people, so to speak.
Does anybody know what he said? Somebody else put it into your words.
Oneness.
Oneness. How so?
Going back to being Ahad with Abba.
This picture of we got lost, and now we're trying to go back to, I could just as easily put a W, where is the here, which is, because we're lost, it seems like there. And the word Shem, which is name, fame, renown, reputation, it's where he's at. So there's something about his name, which is a whole other thing we'll look into. There's something about his name that he declared, Ehyeh. Asher Ehyeh. I am that I am where I am who I am that I am. It's like, what did he really say? We could study the word Asher, doing the same thing, and get that answer. But if I just say that, well, somebody asked the question earlier about what does the word Asher mean? What did it take us there? Length's about 15 minutes, half an hour, looking at the word Asher. I could just say it means that. I am that I am. Well, we discussed it for a half an hour. It's not just the word that. So when you see the English translation, it'll take you like looking at a map and you say, where is he? Well, it's over there. Okay, thank you. And that's about how far English takes you. But then you say, well, Hebrew reveals where that atness is. Kind of like X marks the spot. But it's in every letter. Every letter is a voice. Every letter is a perspective. Every letter is something which is unique from all other letters. And so we just took some time to look at 3 letters here. The word is Shema, and the word is translated as hear. But guess what? Though you were collectively illiterate, we all came up with the exact same meaning. But you didn't know it meant hear. But didn't you all say, if we listen to what he says, he'll take us from being lost and bring us right back to the garden, which was his ideal relationship with the humans he made? You guys said that. So that means you could just look at the Paleo-Hebrew glyphs, letter shapes, and you read the real meaning of this word, not the translation which is given as either the word hear or listen, though it does mean hear or listen. But just by looking at the letter shapes, you read the depth of the language that it would take otherwise hours of somebody up here, blah, 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 trying to get you to see. But you saw it in the simple, natural letter shapes. You read Hebrew. I didn't do it for you. And this is what Yahweh said. What's the most important thing? Shema. And you just read it. To me, that's incredible. That's mind-blowing. That to me is like, wow, you heard his heart just for looking at his language.
I just got one that goes a little different direction.
Go ahead.
Creation. All this creation.
Can you elaborate a little bit louder? So
yes. I'm looking at the macrocosm and the microcosm. I've taught this a million times to atheists. And vibration. Alright? When we Shema, that's Yah speaking, we listen. Okay? If we don't Shema, we don't listen. A voice is a vibration. Okay? What is a Big Bang?
A vibration.
You're absolutely right. And God did what?
Speak.
He spoke. And all into creation. So we've got the Alpha and the Omega. The macrocosm, the microcosm is basically this. An atom is a microcosm. It is just a small piece of what we call the macrocosm, which is the universe. Molecular structure, if you break it down, it works exactly the same, just like it does going from Bashat to soap. So, we have it right there in natural law. So basically, if you look at all this and put it together, if we Shema, we get a new creation. It goes right back to the same thing. It's amazing.
Another way to see this word Genesis all has to do with life, where we get the word generator and genetics. It all has to do with life. Here's a picture of the seed and the fruit. And the seed in a fruit is bringing forth generation after generation. And Yahuwah said, though he said, Ehyeh Asher Yehyeh, he also then said, but Yahuwah, Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, is my Shem Zakar, memorial name. There's different ways to translate that. Generation after generation. Or that which perpetuates the generation, like the seed within the fruit. So what I'm saying is, we could go on and just talk about this one word, these 3 letters, for quite a few hours. And if anybody else has anything to say, just 1 second there, Rad. I would think it would be contributive to everybody's benefit if anybody else has anything to say, because this isn't just about me. I'm just trying to show you what's in these things for you to see, for you to find. And the benefit is not to say, oh yeah, I got that one. But it's to percolate. There's where the benefit is. And like I said, you could now say, oh, I know that word is Shema, but it's like, well, wait a minute, you could still contemplate this years later. For example, I bumped into this word a long time ago, but as I was trying to contemplate this, to bring this to your attention today, I bumped into a few other things. For example, then I'll let you say something in a moment. You mentioned Zechariah 14, okay? And what did he say about raining and fruit?
It says that all nations shall go up to Jerusalem every year to worship at the Feast of Tabernacles, and any nation that does not will receive no rain.
And if they don't receive any rain, you extended that and said they don't receive any fruit. So let me show you something in this word. This letter Sheen is that which is provision, right? Like if I drew it like this, it's like, okay, there's the provision. And Mem is this water. Well, the clouds provide water to bear fruit. The clouds are that which provides the source of the provision to bring forth, like there's the Mem, which is like to give birth, so that we can get fruit. Or sight. So you could contemplate this and saying, if we listen, then he can hear us, and so when we request, the provision can be granted. That's another way to read just the word Shema. So what I'm saying is that the more ways you can see each letter, and the more ways you can see each pair of letters, you can then see where just the word Shema, in modern Hebrew, it would be written as Sheen, Mem, Ayin, just for what it's worth. If I just write these in letters, it's like, the thing about the modern Hebrew, there are some authors, people you can see on the internet, that'll tell you that these mean things. But they don't mean really much of anything different than what we've already discussed. As a matter of fact, what you just saw in some of these letters is more than what you'll see people on the internet telling you these things mean. But people see different stuff. So that's, I'm not trying to minimize anybody else's study, but I'm just letting you know that you can just sit here and ponder the shapes of the letters and see stuff which is valid. Okay, anyway, Red, you were going to say something.
There's just a response to your question of about 5 minutes ago of the summation of the word. What I'm seeing is, listen to me and hear me so that you will know my location so that you can come back to oneness with me.
I think that's a great explanation. It's us who has to turn around, that's the word teshuva, or repent. It's us, he put in our jurisdiction the responsibility to turn around and head back to him. And then you pick back up the prodigal son story where Yeshua says, and the father's been looking and waiting and scanning the horizon day after day, year after year, waiting for the occasion. And here we are, 2017. And why are we doing Sukkot? Because Sukkot is what it looks like to come back to the Father's house because he said to do it.
My sheep hear my voice.
So the other interesting thing is, in Jeremiah 31, after the father says, wow, is Ephraim such a delightful child, or my favorite son, that whenever I think of him my heart grows fonder and fonder, it's because Ephraim decided to listen and walk back. And then he always says something else. He says, make for yourselves billboards, signposts, highway markers, step by step, to show each other, to show yourselves the way back. So for people to be doing graphics, whether it's my stuff or Tiffany's stuff or anybody else's stuff, these alphabetic letters, we're helping each other get back home. Like Hansel and Gretel dropped the breadcrumbs and, oh, gee, they didn't stop to think. They're just little kids. The breadcrumbs got eaten by the wild animals and the birds. Oops, we're lost. Hey, the gingerbread house full of candy canes. And wow, hey, get devoured by the wicked witch. You know, there's this whole story. You know, you'll get devoured unless you come back to the Father's house. There's a shark in them waters. Isn't that what somebody was saying when we were drawing that? The adversary goes about seeking whom he's allowed to devour. One thing I've found is that Yahweh has given us this straight path, which is like this, not necessarily a highway, it's more like this narrow boardwalk, or maybe even a tightrope. Walk on this, because if you step off, the enemy is entitled to chew on you and devour you. Get off the straight path, and the enemy is allowed to devour you. That's his job. If you get a little too close to Jim's truck over there, that dog is going to bite you. I mean, you better know how long that leash is, because that thing's a snarling beast, I'll tell you.
Boy, that was scary. But
That's the adversary.
Thank goodness I have good reflexes.
Yahweh has given the adversary a job. And that job is to go ahead and devour anybody who walks off the straight path. The straight path is how to get back to the Father's house, which is to listen to every word he spoke. Shema, Israel. The word Yashar is straight, and El means strong and powerful. That's the tightrope. Shema, Israel. Walk on the straight path of Yahweh Echad. And we're out of time, so he's going to shut that down. Anybody else have anything?